All right, pulled out the trailer, ready for the final assembly. Cleaned all these out, wiped them down. Here's the two pieces of angle. I'm gonna start setting everything up. Got a bunch of lights. Got a cool time-lapse angle right there. And we're gonna start setting up, and then got a ton of wood from Lowe's that we're gonna build the structure to lift everything up. But we're gonna get started building it now. All right, so here we go. I'm using a rolling table and 2 roller stands to support one half of it. This video is gonna end up probably being a little bit longer because I wanna leave these time lapses a little bit longer so you can see all of the process going into it. I'm getting all the hardware ready, and because right now we're gonna be screwing everything together with Loctite. So this is the final assembly. As I'm putting this together, I'm making sure that everything's nice and squared up. The pieces in the center, since they have 2 screw holes per side, they're already going to be like lining themselves up. But these end pieces, you need to make sure that they are square to the part as you tighten them in. And luckily, everything fits good because we kept going back and forth and double and triple checking all the measurements. All right, so now I'm bringing in the wood. I'm trying to actually not cut the wood as much as possible. I have the room, and so the pieces are 8 feet long, so I'm overlapping on one side, so it's gonna end up being a little bit more of a rectangle than a square, but I'm leaving it so that it hangs out on either side to give it a little bit more stability. All right, so these 2 pieces are what the rails are gonna bolt down to. And once again, I didn't have to cut them. I'm just screwing them together. And I'm gonna eventually have to get this underneath the solar rack. And here we go. Just getting a bunch of people, trying to figure out what exactly to do. And there, it's on. So from here, I'm just going around putting a wood screw with a washer in it just to hold it down so it doesn't slide off. Because in the process of jacking up this assembly, you're going to be at an angle, and if you don't secure it down to the wood, it could slide off very easily. So here's the feet that I cut. I'm screwing these in and putting some bracing onto each corner. I'm using the wood clamps to hold on the main leg, and then screwing it in, and then putting the braces on the side to secure everything, and just replicating that all the way around. All right, this is the last leg. Everything is free. So I'm gonna get everything else out of the way and center it up. There you go. Now it's basically a giant table I've made. And now I'm going to get the solar panels and just set it in there right here. Okay, so we're setting it in there, double checking everything to make sure it works. Even though I put on the brackets, I still have to put Loctite on the T-slotted nuts, because I couldn't do that in advance because the Loctite would dry and they weren't tightened down yet. So all of that needs to be done as you put each one in. So these first 2 panels are going to be the most critical, because we're going to line everything else up to these 2 panels to make sure everything looks good and it's centered. All right, just double checking Making sure it's the same width on both sides. Making sure I like how everything is. Now keep in mind this first panel is curved down, so the bracket's actually going in at a slight angle. But there's enough give in the actual bracket itself. Here's the other part why I'm doing this on the ground, is because I can really get into the center of this pretty easily. All right, now that those two are done, we're just going to replicate that all the way back and just match everything up. We're going to put the brackets where the panel in front of it is at, and the same gap on the sides. We're just going to match everything up, and everything goes pretty smoothly. All right, everything is bolted together and it all fit and it all worked. I'm very excited about that, because if you use these T-slots, they really have to be on center for them to spin. So everything is looking nice. So if you can see, this slopes down and then it's flat, 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 and then this one slopes down this way. The rounded parts that we did look really good. So if for some reason we hit anything on the road or going through a drive-through or something like that, it'll hit here first, not hitting the solar panels. So I'm excited about that. I wanted to have these below the sidewall of this, but it just wasn't in the cards, and I'm kind of happy about it, because then if there's any sun hitting the side, it's not going to cast a big shadow on it, but that's pretty negligible. But I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Everything looks nice and straight, and this is basically a big wood table that we made. I'm going to jack this up to 8 feet. So that's what we're going to do, how we're going to get it onto the trailer. So basically, when this part is higher than the trailer, since it's inset from this, I'm going to unbolt this and then we're going to slide it onto the trailer. Right now I got to get underneath and do all the wiring. So here's all the wiring we got. So I'm going to bolt all that in, or get all that in, and we'll go from there. All right, I didn't really film anything down here because it was all just putting those extensions into each solar panel and then putting the heat shrink labels on them. So it was all pretty straightforward. I did use some tie wraps, but also keep in mind how the roof was kind of higher in the center than it was on the outside. So I was just directing the cables around that hump. My daughter was having a lot of fun on one of the furniture dollies underneath the solar panels. All right, so here's what it looked like after I was done. Everything was nice and tucked up. All of it was focused towards where those glands were coming in. So everything was routed towards the center panels and then to the passenger side of the vehicle. So that's where the glands are coming in, and that's where the charge controller is going to be inside. So you really need to think about that as you're routing your power cables, so that you would make them more efficient. Now, I ordered long enough cables beforehand. I did a lot of measuring to make sure that I would have long enough cables. And I believe the cables that are on the solar panels are like 14 gauge. And my connection cables are 10 gauge. So my gauge wire was actually getting a lot bigger. So I wanted to talk about how we're going to lift it. A couple of different ways. So if you had like a car lift, you could do it that way. I found these online. I believe they're called a duck jack. These were pretty good, but as you can see, they're pretty pricey. And I probably only spent maybe, I don't know, maybe $100, $150 on 2x4s. So I felt like this was a better option. Plus, These are pretty big on the side, and I wasn't sure that I'd have enough room. Also, I don't think that they could have supported all of the weight from one side, so I might have needed two of them. Another thing to consider, if you're going to jack up your panel system or anything else the way I'm jacking it up, and if you do it outside, I would definitely consider not doing it on a windy day. But I looked at all kinds of different options, such as putting pulleys on the roof, a winch, all kinds of things, and I feel like this was the best, safest, and cheapest way to do it. Alright, so normally I really speed up the time lapses, but I really feel like it would be good to let this time lapse go at its normal slow speed so that you guys can see everything I'm doing. So if you see, we're using a normal car jack with a 2x4 pushing up in the center, and then we have these other legs that I'll explain a little bit more in detail, but you might be able to see what we're doing right there. So there's a leg inside of the leg that we're sliding down, and then we put screws going into the first set of legs that you can see there. And then we go to the other side, we jack it up, and then we come back to the other side, and then we jack that up. Right now we're sort of debating because it's starting to feel maybe a little bit wobbly. Alright, so we're jacking it up again, and we're lowering down those legs. You can see the 2x4 start to slide down, and then we're coming over to this side. See right there, we kind of made like a 2x4 adapter that kind of plugs into the wood. See how it jacks it up? So I would definitely have as many people as you can, and then have somebody at every corner just stabilizing it, kind of acting as shock absorbers. So then you see that I'm clamping in that leg, lowering it down, and then putting a screw into there. So then it's holding it. But at this point, I believe we add, yeah, right there. So we're adding in 2x4s going around to just add some stability on those legs. The only thing I wish we would have had more of is more of those wood clamps. I think 2 per leg would have been good, so I would say a minimum of 8 would be perfect. Alright, so everything feels pretty good, and we now have a lower jack point, so now we're jacking it up again. I have everybody watching, keeping an eye on everything. Okay, so now we're jacking up this side, and then we're going to lower down those feet. There we go. So that foot that we're lowering down is on the inside of the first original foot. So now we're jacking up that side, having everybody keep it stable, because it kind of turns into a tripod as you're lifting it off the ground in the center. So now it's starting to get kind of interestingly high. So I decided to go cut some 2x4s to kind of cross brace it. So we're going from that first ring down to that second ring to try to take some of the wobble out of it. Okay, so there's the next board, and you can see that it's on the inside. So this would be the third foot now, the third leg. So we're jacking it up. So we're sliding another one. All right, so I believe at this point we're sort of running out of wood. So we went off and got more wood, and now we're putting another section of bracing around the second leg, because that leg is now no longer going to move. It's now the third leg. When we jack it up, we're going to be lowering down from the third leg. I'll put a photo and a video at the end to try to explain that a little bit better if you're not currently understanding it. But by putting in this other brace, we now have a lower point that we can jack from. I believe I also put another stabilizing bar going from the top, tying into the middle, yeah, right here, tying in from the top to the middle all the way to the bottom on this new one, and that really stiffened it up. You can see it better from this side, right there. So we have one brace going one way that's smaller, and then now this longer brace that is going from the top square piece to the middle square piece to the bottom square piece. And now we're jacking it up again. Now we're lowering down that third foot. So we're jacking it up, have everybody stabilizing it. And now we're lowering down that third foot. Okay, here's where, you know, it's starting to get pretty close to that right height, so I would keep double checking it. No need to overshoot it. But you could see right here, if you're out in the elements and it's a windy day, it wouldn't be a good day. All right, so here we go. Going up again, lowering down that third leg. As soon as you get these legs down, everything becomes stable. So it's pretty easy. I think I'm only using 2 wood screws per leg. All right, so we're pulling in the trailer to see how close we are. And I think we're there. So right here is before we unscrew it and roll it onto the trailer, because it's still screwed into those 2 top rails going across. So right there you could see the 3 different legs. So that center leg is still sticking up a bunch. And the third leg is all the way down. So I believe we're maybe 2 or 3 inches above the trailer. And you can see that right there. All right, so here is the first leg that we started out with. And then we added the second leg, so sitting it on top of that, sliding it down, and then clamping it and screwing it in. So this is the second leg. And then once we felt like that was kind of getting a little bit unstable, we put a box around it, locked it in, and then we added the third leg, the third and final leg. And then you could see that right here. So then we were sliding the third leg against the second leg as we were jacking up each side. We would unscrew it, slide it down, and then screw it back in. All right, so here we are. We're at a completely different camera angle now. We're unscrewing the solar panel system from the whole assembly now so that we can slide it off of here and slide it onto the trailer. I do have I think it's a PCV pipe that as soon as it gets there, right there, I'm gonna set it on top of that so that it rolls on the trailer nice, and that pipe is pretty thin and it'll just bend with the trailer, so it doesn't need to be like perfectly flat. So we're just working it out little by little, and then it starts to set down on here. So you don't want to be too much higher than the trailer. See, that's all perfect. And then eventually we jack up the front of the trailer to make it more parallel. So you should see that right here. There we go. Yep, right there. Jacked up the front of the trailer. So now it's sliding out. Now it's completely on top of the trailer with that pole in it. So this worked out as good as I could have hoped. There was no injuries. There was nothing that went wrong. It was kind of a massive thing to be doing, but it worked out really well, and it was probably the cheapest method of doing it, I would imagine. Plus, I didn't need to go rent anything or go do anything, so I'm pretty happy about that. It was kind of all, you know, just get it up there, just some manpower. So, not trying to win any building awards, we were just jacking it up, screwing in more 2x4s, jacking it up, and then cross bracing it down because it kept getting really wiggly as we jacked it up. Definitely have as many people as possible, and I don't know if you could do it without these clamps, so definitely go and buy some of those. We'll have everything in the description, but it is up there. There is a ton, and I mean a ton, of wiring to do. So this wiring is coming out on this side of the solar panel, but on that side of the rail, so none of the wiring is getting, none of the wiring is crimped or anything, but what I need to do is jack all this up, put the glands in, pull the wire through, and then start worrying about sealing it. I only have one bolt in just so it doesn't slide off and crash on the ground. So that's where it is. Probably next step, this will be pushed inside, and we will be working on getting all the wiring in through the glands, and then we'll probably pull it back out, get everything mounted, glued, some of the tape on there, but I'll walk you through all that. But all right. Okay, I lifted the solar panel up, put 3 boards underneath it on both sides so I can access the glands. So basically, I'm going to fish out. So here's the number ones that I labeled with a heat shrink label gun. I'll show you that when I'm wiring the inside. I also used these little, so it's a T-slot nut, smaller than what's bolting on the panels. And then I found these little plastic things that are for zip ties. I'll probably use those on the inside, but there'll be a link in the description for them. As you can see, I cleaned this whole spot right here with alcohol. Pretty much how the panels I'm considering, like on the top, like it starts over there. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So odd, even side. So I'm gonna do the same thing down here. Like this will be panel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here's the glands. Also with the label gun, we labeled them, just overkill. And if you look on the top right there, that's butyl tape that we put on. Didn't really film that, there wasn't much to it. It's just like a thick tape that we put on there. So I'm going to feather everything through this, through that, and then set this in place. And then we might start bolting it on now, or I might just get everything in place and then hold everything down. I'm probably also going to hook up the voltmeter to both of these. Each lead for each panel, just making sure everything is good. But looking down everything looks pretty good. So I'm gonna get started just laying these out. So right here, we're just putting all the glands in. The butyl tape is on there. I'm making sure to line up each gland for solar panel 1, 2, 3, 4, through 10. I will go through in upcoming videos why I'm wiring it and using so many glands, and whether we're going in series or in parallel. So don't worry, all of that information is coming. And I will eventually probably put a bunch of sealant around these, because I'd rather do this a little bit more overkill to make sure that I don't have any leaks coming on or into the trailer. This is not necessarily necessary, but I like the positive and negative coming through the same side consistently on each gland. They're still going through the same hole that is going into the trailer, but just aesthetically from out here, which is something that nobody's going to see, I think it looks nice. Okay, got everything pulled through and bolted on. I was up here and my wife was inside screwing on all the nylon locking nuts. And then I also looked to see if I had any more slack. I needed more slack on 1, 5, and 9. So I got a little bit more slack out of those. I haven't tightened down any of the strain reliefs yet. And then we did push it outside, because inside the warehouse here, as I was checking it, number 3's voltage was low. And that's over there. When we pushed it outside, I think it was just in a dark spot inside of here, because I just kept double checking to make sure everything was good. But yeah, when I pushed everything outside, everybody was in the 20 to 21 volt range, so that's pretty good. Also, looking at the butyl tape, I'm not confident it's fully sealed right there. It just, I think what I'm gonna do is run some silicone around it or something like that. I'm kind of feeling like, let me get the light here. I'm kind of feeling like water is going to be running this way. So I'll probably go right here pretty heavily, and then do in here as much as I can, and then the same on the back, and then the front of this section, and then on the back, because in between these two it's really oozing out. It's like the gap between this bolt and this bolt, it's kind of like not there. So just a little added protection, because once this is down, these are going to be a huge pain to get out. So I think that that's what I'm going to do, and then we're just gonna go from there, see how it goes. But
All right, so next thing I'm going to do is tighten all the strain reliefs, silicone it, and then I'll just bring it back in. No need for a time lapse for that.
All right, so this is how it looks like. After I'm pretty well done, I'm pretty happy with this. I've designed it so there's just enough give as the rack sits down. There should be enough play. I was very mindful to make sure that nothing was rubbing against anything sharp or metal. So I'm pretty happy with this currently. And then this is what it looks like from the inside. I'm pretty excited about this. You can see all the 1032 nylon locking nuts. They all line up. They all look consistent. That's why I was taking the time with that square, so that all of this would just look as good as possible. You could see all the rubber grommets. That looks cool too. Here's what it looks like from another angle. This is going to be a lot of wiring, and it's going to be quite challenging just to make sure it all looks nice. Alright, so in the upcoming episodes, there's going to be a ton of wiring. There's going to be a panel layout, and we're going to go over why we wired it in the way we did. Why do we have all of the solar wires coming into the trailer? What are the pros? What are the cons? We go through all of that, and I just hope you stick around. Thanks for watching. I would really appreciate it if you guys subscribed and liked the videos. That really helps out the channel, so please stay tuned.